Everybody wants success. More money, a better career, a healthier body, a successful business, fluent English. From a distance, success looks exciting, almost magical. But here's something most people never talk about. Success is surprisingly boring. Not because success itself is boring, because the road to success is. There are no dramatic movie scenes, no instant transformations, no secret shortcuts, just the same habits, repeated again and again and again. Reading when you don't feel like reading, practicing when you don't feel motivated, showing up when nobody is watching. And that's exactly why so few people succeed. They fall in love with excitement. Successful people fall in love with repetition. Hello, my amazing students, and welcome again to your channel. My name is Clara, and today we're going to explore why success often feels boring, why our brains constantly chase excitement instead of progress, and how learning to enjoy ordinary daily habits may become your greatest advantage in life. At the same time, you'll improve your English listening skills, English vocabulary, speaking confidence, and overall English fluency through this fascinating psychology lesson. So let's begin, dear students. Most people think success is exciting, winning, celebrating, receiving awards, buying nice things, achieving big goals. And yes, those moments are exciting, but they represent only a tiny fraction of the journey. The rest? It's surprisingly ordinary. Now, think about someone training for a marathon. Do they experience excitement every morning? Probably not. Many mornings feel exactly the same. Wake up, put on running shoes, train, go home, rest, repeat. The routine isn't glamorous, but the results are. Now, here's something fascinating. Your brain naturally loves novelty. New experiences, new places, new conversations, new challenges. Every time something unexpected happens, your brain becomes curious. It pays attention. It becomes energized. That instinct helped humans survive for thousands of years. Our ancestors needed to notice new dangers, new opportunities, new sources of food. So the brain evolved to pay attention to what is different. But success depends on something completely different: consistency. Doing the same valuable actions long after they stop feeling exciting. And that's where many people struggle. Now imagine someone starting to learn English. The first week feels amazing. Everything is new. New vocabulary, new expressions, new pronunciation. Motivation is high. The learner imagines becoming fluent. Everything feels possible. Then something changes. Week 3 arrives. The excitement begins to fade. Lessons start feeling repetitive. Listening practice feels similar. Vocabulary review feels familiar. Progress becomes slower and less noticeable. And many people quit. Not because the method stopped working, because the excitement disappeared. Now, here's the interesting part. The method was working the entire time. The learner simply confused excitement with progress. Those are not the same thing. Now think about brushing your teeth. Most people don't wake up excited to brush their teeth. They simply do it. Every morning, every evening, without needing motivation, because it's become part of their identity. Success works in a surprisingly similar way. Successful people often don't rely on feeling inspired every day. They rely on systems, habits, routines. They show up whether they feel excited or not. Now here's something powerful. The brain often mistakes familiarity for lack of progress. When something becomes familiar, it starts feeling less impressive. But familiarity is often evidence that you're improving. Imagine learning to drive. At first, every movement requires concentration. Steering, mirrors, traffic, parking. everything feels difficult. Months later, you drive while holding conversations, listening to music, thinking about other things. Driving became automatic, not because it became less valuable, because your brain adapted. The same thing happens with success. The habits become ordinary. The improvement becomes invisible, but it's still happening. Now let's connect this to English learning. Imagine listening to English every day. At first, every sentence feels challenging. Then one day, you suddenly realize you understood an entire conversation without translating. It feels effortless. But that effortless moment was built by hundreds of ordinary practice sessions, none of which felt extraordinary. Now here's another important truth. People often celebrate results while ignoring routines. They admire the fluent speaker, but they don't see the thousands of hours spent listening. They admire the successful entrepreneur, but they don't see the years of solving problems. They admire the athlete, but they don't see the early mornings. Success looks exciting from the outside, but it is built through repetition on the inside. Now imagine two people. One constantly searches for exciting new methods, new apps, new books, new shortcuts. The other chooses one good system and follows it consistently, month after month, year after year. Who is more likely to succeed? Usually the second person, because repetition compounds. Small improvements become large improvements. Ordinary habits become extraordinary results. Now here's perhaps the biggest lesson. If your progress feels boring, that may actually be a good sign. It often means you've moved beyond motivation, beyond excitement, into consistency. And consistency is where lasting success is built. Because success is rarely dramatic. It's usually quiet, predictable, repetitive. And that's exactly why so many people miss it. They're searching for excitement, while success is patiently waiting inside today's ordinary routine. And the people who learn to appreciate that routine often discover something remarkable. The boring path is usually the one that leads to extraordinary destinations. One of the biggest myths about success is this. Successful people are always motivated. They wake up excited. They feel inspired every day. They love every minute of the journey. It sounds nice, but it's rarely true. The reality is much simpler. Successful people lose motivation too. They get tired, they get bored, they feel distracted. They have difficult days just like everyone else. The difference isn't that they never lose motivation. The difference is that they don't depend on it. Now think about motivation. It's an emotion, and emotions change. Some mornings you wake up feeling energetic. Other mornings, you don't. Some days you're excited to study English. Other days, you would rather do almost anything else. That's completely normal, because motivation was never designed to stay at the same level forever. Now imagine building your future on something that changes every day. It would be risky. Some days you'd make progress. Other days you'd stop completely. That's why successful people build something much stronger than motivation. They build habits. Now, here's something fascinating. Every habit follows a simple pattern. You decide what to do, you repeat it, again, again, again. Eventually, your brain stops asking whether you feel like doing it. It simply becomes part of your routine. Think about brushing your teeth. Do you negotiate with yourself every morning? Do you ask, should I brush my teeth today? Probably not. You simply do it, because repetition has turned it into an automatic behavior. Now imagine treating English practice the same way. Not something you do only when you feel inspired, something you simply do, like brushing your teeth, like eating breakfast, like going to work. That small shift changes everything. Now, let's connect this to success. Imagine two learners. The first studies English only when motivation appears. Some weeks they study 5 hours, other weeks, nothing. The second learner studies 20 minutes every single day, sometimes motivated, sometimes bored, sometimes tired, but always consistent. Who becomes fluent first? Usually the second learner. Not because they studied harder, because they studied consistently. Now here's something powerful. Consistency beats intensity. A single day of studying for 8 hours feels impressive, but studying for 30 minutes every day for a year often produces much better results because the brain loves repetition. Skills grow through repetition. Confidence grows through repetition. Fluency grows through repetition. Now imagine planting a tree. You don't pour 1,000 liters of water on it in a single day, then ignore it for the next 6 months. You water it regularly, little by little, day after day. That's how growth happens. Success works exactly the same way. Now, here's another interesting truth. Motivation often follows action, not the other way around. Many people think, I'll start when I feel motivated. Successful people often say, I'll start, and motivation will catch up. And surprisingly, they're usually right. Think about exercise. The hardest part is often putting on your shoes. Once you begin, continuing becomes much easier. The same thing happens with reading, writing, learning English, building a business. Action creates momentum. Momentum creates motivation. Now here's something many people overlook. Habits reduce decision-making. Every decision uses mental energy. If you decide every day whether to practice, your brain gets tired. But when practice becomes automatic, you save that energy. And that makes consistency much easier. Now imagine yourself 1 year from now. You no longer ask, do I feel motivated today? Instead, you ask, what's today's practice? The question changes. The identity changes. The results change. Now let's go deeper. Successful people often see discipline differently. Many people think discipline feels harsh, strict, uncomfortable. But discipline is actually freedom, because discipline frees you from depending on emotions. You no longer need to wait until the perfect mood arrives. You simply continue. And over time, those ordinary daily actions become extraordinary achievements. Now think about every person you've ever admired. An athlete, a musician, a writer, an entrepreneur, a fluent English speaker. None of them reached their goals through motivation alone. They repeated ordinary actions long after those actions stopped feeling exciting. That's why success often looks boring from the inside. The routine rarely changes, but the person slowly does. Now here's the deeper lesson. If you only work when you feel motivated, your emotions control your future. If you build habits that continue even when motivation disappears, you begin controlling your future. And that's one of the biggest differences between people who dream about success and people who eventually achieve it. Because motivation helps you start, but habits help you finish. One of the biggest reasons people give up on success is because progress often feels invisible. You work hard today, and nothing seems to change. You practice English for a week, and you still make mistakes. You exercise for 2 weeks, and your body looks almost the same. You save money for a month, and you still don't feel wealthy. So your brain starts asking a dangerous question. Is any of this even working? Now here's the fascinating part. It is working. You just can't see it yet. Because success usually grows beneath the surface before it becomes visible. Now imagine planting a bamboo seed. You water it every day. Nothing happens. A week passes. Nothing. A month passes. Still nothing. Another month. Still no visible growth. Most people would stop watering it. They would assume the seed was dead. But underground, something extraordinary is happening. The roots are expanding, growing stronger, preparing for future growth. Then one day, the bamboo suddenly begins growing rapidly. From the outside, it looks like overnight success. But it wasn't. The invisible work had been happening for months. Success often works exactly the same way. Now think about learning English. The first month feels slow. You learn vocabulary, forget vocabulary, practice pronunciation. Still struggle to understand native speakers. Sometimes it even feels like you're getting nowhere. But your brain is changing. New neural connections are forming. Patterns are becoming familiar. Listening is becoming easier, even if you don't notice it yet. Then, one day, someone speaks English to you, and without translating, you understand. It feels sudden, but it wasn't sudden at all. It was the result of hundreds of small practice sessions. Now here's something powerful. Small actions seem insignificant because we judge them individually. Reading 10 pages doesn't feel life-changing. Practicing English for 20 minutes doesn't feel life-changing. Saving $10 doesn't feel life-changing. Going for one walk doesn't feel life-changing. Individually, they're small. But success is never built on one action. It's built on thousands of actions working together. Now imagine placing one tiny brick on an empty field. It doesn't look impressive. Place another. Still nothing. Another. Months later, you've built a house. No single brick created the house. The collection of bricks did. Daily habits are your bricks. Now, here's another fascinating truth. People dramatically overestimate what they can accomplish in 1 week and underestimate what they can accomplish in 5 years. Why? Because we're naturally impatient. We want immediate evidence, immediate rewards, immediate transformation. But meaningful success rarely follows that timeline. It follows the timeline of consistency. Now, let's connect this to the gym. A person exercises today. Nothing changes. Tomorrow, nothing changes. Next week, only small changes. After a year, friends begin asking, "What happened?" The transformation looks dramatic, but it was built by hundreds of ordinary workouts, none of which felt extraordinary at the time. Now think about your English journey again. Every podcast you listen to, every conversation you practice, every page you read, every mistake you correct, every new word you learn. Each one feels small, almost forgettable. But together, they completely transform your ability. Now here's something many successful people understand. Never judge today's effort by today's result. Judge today's effort by the person you're becoming. Because today's action is investing in tomorrow's version of you, not today's version. Now imagine someone who quits after 1 month because progress feels slow. Compare them with someone who continues for 3 years. Who do you think reaches fluency? Who builds the business? Who writes the book? Who becomes healthier? Usually, the person who accepted that success would be slow. Now, here's another important realization. The boring days matter the most, not because they're exciting, because they happen most often. Your future isn't shaped by one extraordinary day. It's shaped by hundreds of ordinary days. Ordinary Mondays, ordinary Tuesdays, ordinary Wednesdays. Days when nothing dramatic happens, yet you still show up. You still practice. You still improve. And little by little, those ordinary days create an extraordinary life. Now imagine yourself 5 years from today, looking back. Would you remember every single practice session? Probably not, but you'll certainly notice the result. You'll notice the confidence, the fluency, the discipline, the growth. Because success hides inside small daily actions. Actions that seem too small to matter. Until one day, you realize they mattered more than anything else. And that's why success feels boring. Not because it's empty, but because greatness is usually built through ordinary moments that almost nobody celebrates. Until the results become impossible to ignore. Take a look at the lives of highly successful people. Olympic athletes, world-class musicians, successful entrepreneurs, great writers, professional chess players. People who consistently achieve remarkable results. At first, they seem very different. Different personalities, different careers, different goals. But if you look closely, they all have something surprisingly similar. Strong routines. Not perfect routines, strong routines. Because successful people eventually discover something important. Your routine makes your decisions for you, and that's incredibly powerful. Now think about how many decisions you make every day. Should I study today? Should I exercise? Should I practice English? Should I read? Should I work on my goal? If you negotiate with yourself every single day, eventually your emotions will win. Some days you'll feel motivated, other days you won't, and your progress will constantly rise and fall. But routines remove much of that negotiation. Now imagine someone who practices English every morning at 7 o'clock. Not because they always feel excited, because that's simply what they do. After enough repetition, the question disappears. They don't ask, "Should I practice today?" The routine has already answered. Now here's something fascinating. The human brain loves saving energy. Making decisions requires effort. That's why habits are so valuable. Once a behavior becomes automatic, your brain no longer needs to debate it. It simply happens. That's one reason routines make success feel easier over time. Now think about brushing your teeth again. You probably don't spend 5 minutes convincing yourself to do it. You simply walk into the bathroom and begin. Imagine if your English practice became that automatic. Imagine if reading became that automatic. Imagine if exercising became that automatic. Your progress would no longer depend on your mood. Now let's go deeper. Many people chase excitement. A new productivity app, a new language course, a new business idea, a new morning routine, a new motivational video. At first, everything feels exciting, but excitement eventually fades. Then they search for something new again, and they repeat this cycle for years, always beginning, rarely continuing. Now compare that to someone who finds one effective routine and protects it, day after day, month after month, year after year. The routine may look boring, but the results rarely are. Now here's another important truth. Successful people often protect their mornings, or their evenings, or specific hours of the day. Why? Because they understand that attention is limited. If they allow every notification, every distraction, every interruption to enter their day, their important work may never happen. So instead of protecting their motivation, they protect their environment. They remove distractions, reduce unnecessary decisions, and make success easier. Now imagine trying to learn English while checking your phone every 5 minutes. Progress becomes slow. Focus disappears. Now imagine studying in a quiet environment for 30 uninterrupted minutes. The amount you learn can be completely different. The time didn't change, the attention did. Now here's something powerful. People often admire discipline, but they ignore the routines that create discipline. Discipline is rarely something you suddenly develop. It grows from repeated behaviors, repeated choices, repeated actions, until those actions become part of who you are. Now think about identity. A person who says, "I sometimes practice English," behaves differently from someone who says, "I'm an English learner." A person who says, "I occasionally read books," behaves differently from someone who says, "I'm a reader." Identity changes behavior, and routines strengthen identity. Every time you complete your daily habit, you quietly prove something to yourself. I keep my promises. I show up. I continue. Those messages become powerful over time. Now imagine yourself 1 year from now. Your routine is simple, not complicated, not exciting, but consistent. You wake up, practice English, read a little, work on your goals, repeat. Some days feel amazing, some feel ordinary, but you continue anyway. At the end of the year, your life looks completely different. Not because one extraordinary day changed everything, because hundreds of ordinary days quietly built something extraordinary. And that's one of the biggest secrets behind lasting success. Successful people don't spend their lives chasing excitement. They build routines that keep moving them forward, even after the excitement disappears. Because excitement starts the journey, but routine is what carries you all the way to the finish line. After everything we've explored, one important question remains. If success is repetitive, if success requires discipline, if success often feels ordinary, then why is it worth it? Because the boring path leads to an extraordinary destination. Now think about a skyscraper. When people admire it, they notice the height, the beauty, the architecture. They don't think about the thousands of hours spent pouring concrete, laying steel, installing windows, following the same construction process day after day. The exciting part is the finished building. The boring part built it. Success works exactly the same way. Now imagine someone who becomes fluent in English. People often say, "Wow, your English is amazing." What they don't see are the hundreds of mornings spent listening to podcasts, the vocabulary reviews, the pronunciation practice, the conversations that felt awkward, the mistakes, the repetition. The boring moments created the impressive result. Now here's something fascinating. The brain naturally remembers exciting moments: winning a competition, getting promoted, launching a business, receiving applause. But success is rarely built during those moments. It's built on quiet Tuesday mornings, ordinary Wednesday evenings, simple routines that nobody celebrates, because greatness is usually created in private before it's recognized in public. Now, think about a professional musician. People watch a beautiful performance and think, "What incredible talent!" But behind that performance are thousands of hours playing the same notes, practicing the same scales, correcting the same mistakes, again and again and again. The audience sees the magic. The musician remembers the repetition. Now, let's connect this to your own life. Imagine practicing English every day for the next 3 years. Some days you'll feel excited. Some days you'll feel tired. Some days you'll wonder if you're improving at all. But if you continue, one day someone will ask, "How did your English become so good?" And the honest answer will be surprisingly simple. I just kept showing up. Now here's another powerful realization. People often chase dramatic transformations. They want one book that changes everything, one course, one conversation, one opportunity. But life usually changes through accumulation. One page read today, one podcast tomorrow, one conversation next week, one habit repeated for years. Small actions, massive results. Now imagine climbing a mountain. You don't reach the top with one giant leap. You take one step, then another, then another. Many of those steps feel ordinary. Some feel difficult. Some feel boring. Yet every single step moves you closer to the summit. Success follows the same principle. Now here's something interesting. The people who achieve extraordinary things often become comfortable with ordinary days. They don't need constant excitement. They don't need constant praise. They don't need daily proof that they're improving. They trust the process. They understand that today's effort is building tomorrow's opportunity. And that trust becomes a superpower. Now think about your future. 5 years from now, you'll probably wish you had started today. Not because today feels dramatic, because time quietly multiplies every small action. Every day you practice English, your future becomes a little different. Every day you read, your knowledge expands. Every day you improve a skill, new opportunities become possible. That's the quiet power of consistency. Now here's one final lesson. Stop asking whether today's work feels exciting. Start asking whether today's work moves you closer to the person you want to become. That's a much better question, because excitement comes and goes. Progress stays. Now imagine yourself years from now, looking back at everything you've achieved. Your English is fluent, your confidence is stronger, your habits are healthier, your goals have become reality. People might call you talented, lucky, naturally disciplined, but you'll know the truth. It wasn't one extraordinary decision. It was hundreds of ordinary ones. The mornings you practiced when nobody was watching. The evenings you kept learning instead of giving up. The days you continued even when nothing felt exciting. That's where success was built. Not in the spotlight, but inside the routine. And perhaps that's the greatest secret of all. Success isn't boring because it's meaningless. Success feels boring because excellence is built through repetition. And the people who learn to appreciate that repetition eventually discover something extraordinary. The life they once dreamed about was quietly being created by the ordinary things they chose to do every single day. So don't run away from the boring days. Respect them, because they are the days that build the future you've been hoping for.